Well, hello there, and we're back. Hey, sorry it's been a little bit of a time gap there. Um, Crazy times. We're still in quarantine, doing the whole COVID-19 thing, and life is just a little nutty, but we're doing okay. And today we are going to talk about the allegory, Zenos's allegory of the olive vineyard or the olive tree. And I think this is the longest chapter in all of scripturedom, and that's awesome. And also, I have to tell you, I've completely just fallen in love with it. It's cool. So we're gonna have fun, and we're gonna get through this. Ready? 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 Oh, also, just be warned. I cannot guarantee that we will not be visited by one or two kitty cats. So if they show up, I'm just going to kind of keep on going. And sorry for that little ding there. Let me turn that off. Hopefully that helps. Let's actually quit out of it. There. Hopefully that helps. Okay. So before we jump, the allegory is in Jacob chapter 5. Before we jump in, we want to remember where we left off in Jacob chapter 4, the very last thing. So Jacob is talking to his people. Now he's writing. As far as we know, he's not actually standing in front of them. Ignore the picture. He's writing or scratching into the plates. And yet he's doing it in the form of speaking to his people. So he asks a question. He's speaking about the Jews of Jerusalem, and he's speaking about the future in which they reject the Savior, right? Because we had just reviewed some prophecies about the future and when Christ comes and how he's rejected by the Jews and crucified. And so he's asking the question, and now, my beloved, meaning his people, how is it possible that these, the Jews of Jerusalem, after having rejected the sure foundation, meaning the Savior, can ever build upon it, that it may become the head of their corner, right? So how can you go from being so bad that you are rejecting the Savior and crucifying him to making him the center of your universe? Like, how can you go that far? Because, wow, that's pretty far gone, and that's quite a turnaround. And so, yep, good question, because it was prophesied that in the last days they will make that adjust. They'll turn around and they'll accept him. And so he's saying, wow, how could that be? And so he says, "Behold, my beloved brethren," and of course that includes sisters as well. "I will unfold this mystery unto you, if I do not by any means get shaken from my firmness in the spirit and stumble because of my over anxiety for you." Isn't that interesting? Jacob is the most interesting guy because he's just so honest, right? He's worried that he's going to get shaken from his firmness in the spirit because of his over anxiety for his people. He's really worried about his people. I think he can, there's no I think, he definitely sees, the direction that they're heading, and it's not good. It's sinful. And he's really worried about them. And so, how do you kind of contain yourself and stick to the subject and all that when you're that worked up with concern? So, now we begin to unfold the mystery. So now we're in Jacob chapter 5, and we're going to reveal this just a little bit at a time. "Behold, my brethren and sisters, do ye not remember to have read the words of the prophet Zenos, which he spake unto the house of Israel, saying," hang on, Zenos. So remember, we've talked about this. Zenos is an Old Testament prophet, right? We assume that his writings were in the brass plates of Laban that they brought with them, which we know was a more complete record than what we have today as our Old Testament. And so Zenos was clearly one of those prophets that was whose writings were in there, and he's quoted, the only prophet The only Old Testament prophet who is quoted more in the Book of Mormon than Zenos is Isaiah. And we know that Isaiah is quoted aplenty, but Zenos gives him a run for his money in terms of quantity of quotes. So here comes Zenos. Ready? This is Zenos. Hearken, O ye house of Israel, and hear the words of me, Zenos, a prophet of the Lord. I like how he introduces himself there. For behold, this is Zenos talk, right? From here on out, Zenos. For behold, thus saith the Lord, I will liken thee, O Israel, O house of Israel, like unto a tame olive tree. Well, what the heck is a tame olive tree? A tame olive tree is an olive tree that has been tended, carefully tended, to bring out the best qualities. And there's just an entire, so much of process and art to getting the most perfect olives, and all of that, and getting the most olives you can out of a tree. It's quite a thing. And so we're going to read all about this, but it's interesting. What's in here? Now I'm not a tree person or a vine person or anything like that person, but I read and I watch other people's stuff, and apparently the BYU agricultural experts have said, "Holy cow! This is so accurate to the way that you actually tend olive trees. It's like completely accurate. So it's not like Zenos is just saying, yeah, so you kind of whatever, and you do. No, you and I we won't catch the subtleties, but the reality is that this was extremely accurate to how you actually take care of olive trees, which is kind of neat. Now, does that mean it's a story about olive trees? No, it's not. And we're going to talk more about what it is and what it isn't, and what it can be, and what are good ways to make use of this. So since Jacob started us out by referring to this as a mystery, I like where he's heading with that. See, Jacob, he's my man. I like where he's heading with that. So we're going to stick with that, and we're going to treat this kind of like a play, a mystery play. And so we have a cast of players. There is the master of the vineyard. There is the servant. And so through most of this, it'll be a conversation between just those two, the master and the servant. The master will say, hey, what about this? And we should do that. And the servant will, oh, yep, okay, let's go do that. There are the laborers. They come in at the end. There's a bunch of them, but not as many as we wanted. There's few, but there's a bunch. But few compared to how much work they have to do. There is the main olive. See, I should have written this out. There are olive trees. We don't know exactly how many olive trees there are, although there are basically 5 locations mentioned, each of which have olive trees in them. So there is the tame olive tree, the main olive tree, and then there are the wild olive trees. So there's one tame olive tree, and then there's some number, 4 or more, wild olive trees. Okay, now there is you talk about the whole tree itself, but you also talk about the pieces of the tree, and each of those has its own part to play. There are the roots of the tree, the branches of the tree, and the fruit of the tree. Okay? So those are the players. Now there's the setting. This, for the most part, although not exclusively, this takes place in the vineyard. Okay? The Lord's vineyard, the master's vineyard, however you want to say it. Although there are a couple of scenes where technically it's the master of the vineyard and the servant talking to one another, and they are not in the vineyard. They are away. They're above, because they say, let us go down. So they're above somewhere. But for the most part, everything that happens in the vineyard. And the vineyard is comprised of different places. There is the choice spot, which is where the main star of our show, the tame olive tree is. And then there are poor areas of the vineyard. And then there is the nethermost, which is the furthest and poorest and all that. So those are the settings of the vineyard, and where you are matters. And the conditions of the location, it matters. Wrong way. Okay, now there's the action. This is the action that takes place. And I'm spelling this out for you because it matters, right? If you think about it in these terms, then as you read, you're paying attention and you're listening for the different things. Okay, I get it. That's what's going on. And now they're doing this and that and whatever. And it matters, right? The better you listen for these sorts of cues, the more useful this is for you to be able to then kind of go, all right, so what does that mean to me? If I think of this, then what is that, and all that. So the actions that take place: pruning, digging, fertilizing, grafting, transplanting, and burning, right? So those are things that the master does, the servant does, and the laborers do. And they do it to the ground, they do it to the trees, they do it to, the branches, they do it to all, depending on what it is, but they do it to these things. Ready? The drama. There's always drama. Okay, so what I mean by drama, these are what the tree does, right? How it responds. And it is not a mechanical thing. If you do A, then it will do B. Oh, no. There is agency involved here, or at least massive complexity to the point where it seems random to us, but not really random, but there is essentially agency. And so I think for this to be a useful model for us to follow, then we have to assume that that choices are being made here. So the reactions to the actions, when pruning happens and digging and fertilizing, grafting, transplanting, burning, when those things take place, combined with the weather and time, right? Then the tree can grow branches. The tree can sprout little sprouts, little baby branches. The tree can wither. The tree can grow good fruit, or the tree can grow wild fruit, right? Now, there is one little section where they talk about fruit that is, how bad is it, and taking the worst of it. So it's not like it's either perfectly good or perfectly bad. And it's just like people. Anyway, so that's the drama. Now, behold, let us talk about the keys to this mystery. And by the way, this is just kind of what came out of my brain. So these are the things that are helpful for me. These are not the only keys, and these may or may not work for you, but hopefully these are helpful to you. So the way I look at this, this is a model, not a story. It's kind of a story, but the thing is, when we think of a story, then we think the story is the story, and the story means one thing, and that's all that the story means is what the story means. And in this case, we are completely cutting ourselves off if we think of it that way. It is true that you can take this and compare it to actual history, and you can say, oh, okay, and there's kitty number one. You can look at it and say, okay, so these verses are referring to Assyria coming and carrying away the 10 tribes. And then these here are referring to, the Jews and Rome and scattering the Jews. And then this is it and that's it. And that works. You can do it and it works and it's right. I don't think that there's anything wrong or incorrect about that. Because it really is very accurate it fits very well, and I believe that he was prophesying in that way. Now, but the thing is, it's much more than that. Oh, sorry, if the world just shook, that was not an earthquake. That was a kitty rubbing himself up against the monitor, which is holding the camera. And sorry, we'll try and get him just kind of there. Good kitty. Okay, so this works better when you think of it as a model. And what I mean by that is that you can say, all right, now the laborers, what if I think about me as a laborer? If I'm a laborer, what does that mean to me? Oh, okay, that means some things. That means I'm going to, I get to labor with the Lord. That's cool. And so when I'm laboring for the Lord, I'm not just laboring for him, I'm literally laboring with him. And so long as I am diligent and I obey his commands exactly, then I'm there with him and he's guiding me, and that's sweet. I like that. So there's a lesson if you said, what if I read this with me in the role of a laborer? But then you might say, what if it was me in the role of the olive tree? Well, gosh, that means that I might be productive sometimes with, in making good fruit, or I might be making, bad fruit or different things like that, depending on what's going on. And so you can, okay, so if I'm the olive tree, then there's some lessons there for me. I need to respond, it's still up to me to decide whether to, make good fruit or wild fruit, regardless of the circumstances. What if it's me in the role of the vineyard? Oh, okay, I've got a stony heart and I need it to be dug up and someone to smear poop all over it. And, then, anyways, you get the idea. And truly, there is great value in inserting yourself into every different role and just trying it out. But there's not really, I should say, there isn't much use in us playing the role of the master because that role is not for us. But anyways, so you try them out and you see. And then another part about it is the scope of this, right? You can, now we talked about the historical comparison. And so this could represent the history of the world and the entire planet. And that's not wrong. But you could also say, well, what if this whole play here represents my life and the different phases that my life goes through, things like that. And what if this represents my mission or my last year or whatever it might be. And so you can take the entire scope of this whole allegory and kind of box it in and run it again, thinking of it just in these terms. And again, it has value. And then the last thing to remember is that the action is the Lord's work, right? In every case, when they are doing the pruning, digging, fertilizing, grafting, planting, burning, transplanting, burning, that's the Lord's work. And then the drama is how we use our agency, or how the trees use their agency. Okay. Does that work? Raise your hand if you're, okay, you can't. Okay, so let's continue. We got a lot of verses to go. We have 74 more to go. For behold, thus saith the Lord, I will liken thee, O house of Israel, like unto a tame olive tree. Remember, that's an olive tree that's been well tended, which a man took and nourished in his vineyard. So now here's the whole vineyard. And what I've done, I drew these kind of silly. And so the tame olive tree, I've done that. I've made it brown with green fruit. And then the wild olive trees, because we're going to be doing a lot of grafting here, I've made those purple with pink fruit. Pink fruit is the wild fruit, and purple, or whatever you call that color is, yeah, you get the idea. So there's his vineyard. And you see the vineyard has different areas. This area here, you see these are little water indicators. These are like, it's kind of a swampy area. This area here is kind of rocky, not so good, rocky. This area here, really bumpy and hilly, not so good. This area here, oh no, that's pretty nice, green and flat, so nice. So not so good, not so good, not so good, pretty good, but the best is right here in the middle. Okie dokie. Now you've been introduced. And it grew and waxed old. See how it's getting bigger now. That's how it was, but now more branches, more fruit. It's getting old. I'm sorry, I did not include an actual picture of a real old olive tree. They live to be 1,000 or more years old if they're well kept, and their root bases, their trunks just are these crazy, crazy gnarled things. It's crazy. So, anyways, yeah. It grew and waxed old, and it began to decay. And it came to pass that the master of the vineyard went forth, and he saw that his olive tree began to decay. And he said, I will prune it, and dig about it, and nourish it, that perhaps it may shoot forth young and tender branches, and it perish not. Yeah. And it came to pass that he pruned it. So you see, he's taken off the decaying branches. And he digged about it. That might be a little hard to see, but there's little shovels, and you can see the dirt is kind of torn up there. And he nourished it according to his word. So they'll call that different things, but fertilizer, we know where fertilizer comes from. That's the poop I was referring to earlier. So now it's an interesting thing. Again, when you compare this to life, The sequence, I think, is very important. The first thing he did was to prune it, right? Do we ever in our lives sometimes feel that, we just got pruned, right? It's like, hey, come on, I was doing okay. Why did that good thing just have to stop? Why did that go away? It seemed like it was going well. And sometimes the Lord needs us to learn lessons that we cannot learn when things are going well. We will learn these lessons, individually only when, we're challenged or pruned back in some way, right? And so it hurts and it seems unfair. And it's like, crap, what's going on here? Why did that have to happen? If you look back on your life, and if you look back with proper eyes, you will probably see that the times in your life that you were under stress, when things didn't seem to be going well, if you stop and think about it, maybe even pray and get a little bit of help with it, you'll realize that you were blessed in ways during that time that you could not have been blessed in any other way, because it just wouldn't have happened if things had stayed on course the way you thought that they should be. So first is the pruning, then is the digging. The digging, breaking up that hard soil, right? Our stony hearts, or whatever it may be. And that can be uncomfortable too. If there's surface roots or things like that, then, a tree might be kind of going, oi, hey, you're disrupting. Why are you stirring up my stuff? Everything was running smooth, and why does it have to be all, broken up now? Well, because what happened, can the fertilizer get in? Can the nourishment, it's not really poop. I mean, it is, but it's nourishment. Can it get in if our ground is stony and hard? No, it cannot. Sometimes our hearts have to be softened through trial, before the right things can happen, before they can be, improved. They talk, all through the scriptures, they talk about a broken heart and a contrite spirit. And, I didn't really have a great appreciation for what that meant. We sent our son on a mission, and that broke my heart, sending him away. That was the hardest. You see, I mean, even still today, he's been back for a year, the dummy. And that still is a super hard thing for me. It broke my heart. But the cool thing was that the Lord mended it and improved it. He upgraded it. He did not apparently upgrade it in a way that I don't get. In fact, here's my opinion on it. He upgraded it because I am more sensitive to other people's trials and things like that now than I used to be. It used to be, I could hear a story of someone's trials and it's like, wow, that really sucks. Sorry, but and now I tend to get more affected by it, and I don't think that that's because I am broken. I think that's because in a way I was, my heart was kind of upgraded through its own breaking so that I could be more empathetic of others, which I think is a good thing. Anyway, so we have to go through some hard, painful things in order for us to grow the way we need to grow. Digged about it, nourished it according to his word, right? He said it. Oh, also warning, there's going to be so much repetition here where they talk about it first and then they go do it. And so just don't be confused. Sometimes they're talking about it, sometimes they're doing it. I can't guarantee that my little pictures always are doing the right thing on the right thing, but anyways. And it came to pass that after many days, it began to put forth somewhat a little young and tender branches. So I hope you like my bright green straws. Those are young and tender branches. And so this can be like us, right? When something bad happens, what we think is bad, something disruptive, something that feels like pruning, where we have to kind of reinvent ourselves. We have to rediscover what's important to us. Maybe throw in a little bit of COVID-19 and send everybody home into a quarantine, right? And that feels really disruptive. But what happens if you work at it, if you don't just take the pruning and go, I just got pruned, that sucks. But rather, if you say, ouch, wow, sheesh. Well, okay, what are we going to do with this? How can we make the best of this? And what is this breaking the ground up? Earthquake? What are we, why is this still happening? Right? But if we say, all right, well, what can I do to make the best of this I can? Well, I'm going to stick closer to my family, right? I'm going to spend more time with them, kind of because I have to, but let's actually use our time well, and let's see how we can grow closer together as a family. Oh my goodness, no more church meetings. We can't even do that anymore. Yikes. This is really hard. Well, okay, I guess we're going to have church at home. Let's do a good job. Let's try and make it an actual spiritual thing, right? Let's sing a little. Let's do some scriptures a little. Let's dress up a little. Let's have the sacrament at home. And holy cow, these are little young and tender branches as we start to reinvent ourselves and blow some of the cobwebs off of things maybe that we could have been doing all this time. But behold, the main top thereof began to perish. Sometimes that happens. And it came to pass that the master of the vineyard saw it, and he said unto his servant, It grieveth me that I should lose this tree. Wherefore, go and pluck the branches from a wild olive tree, and bring them hither to me. So I don't know if you can see that, but little purple olive branches from the wild olive tree. And he's got a plan. And we will pluck off those main branches which are beginning to wither away, and we will cast them into the fire that they may be burned. Right? So another interesting, there's just so many analogies. Isn't it interesting? The whole tree received the same treatment. It all got pruned. The dirt, was dug up all over, and it all got nourished. But some branches stayed strong, and some even began to sprout new growth, and some just said, nope, that's it. I'm withering. I'm out of here. Right? Isn't that interesting how we are the same way? Either ourselves from one time to the next. Sometimes we take something hard happening and we grow from it, and other times we're just like, ugh, forget it, and we wither. Or maybe one person takes it and grows, and another person takes it and withers. And we will pluck off those main branches which are beginning to wither away, and we will cast them into the fire that they may be burned. And behold, saith the Lord of the vineyard, I take away many of these young and tender branches, and I will graft them whithersoever I will. And it mattereth not that if it so be that the root of this tree will perish, I may preserve the fruit thereof unto myself. Wherefore I will take these young and tender branches, and I will graft them whithersoever I will. It's a very interesting thing through this whole allegory to pay close attention to the things that the Lord does and the things that he delegates to his servants, right? So he had the servants go in and, do all of that junk there, plucking the wild branches and do that. But when it comes to handling of this tree, he's very careful, and he does the delicate things himself. Take thou the branches of the wild olive tree and graft them in the stead thereof. Okay, so there they've done that. And these which I have plucked off, so it was the Lord who plucked off the branches, right? Isn't that interesting? So if there is disrupting to do, those painful, difficult things, he didn't have the servants do that. The Lord did that. The Lord did the pruning, right? And so when we're getting pruned, we need to remember that that's coming from a loving Heavenly Father. And now that he's plucked them off, then he'll cast them into the fire, right? And it came to pass that the servant of the Lord of the vineyard did according to the word of the Lord of the vineyard, and grafted in the branches of the wild olive tree. And the Lord of the vineyard caused that it should be digged about, and pruned, and nourished, saying unto his servant, It grieveth me that I should lose this tree. Wherefore, that perhaps I might preserve the roots thereof, that they perish not, that I might preserve them unto myself, I have done this thing. Wherefore, go thy way, watch the tree, and nourish it according to my words. So many very groovy analogies that you can take out of this. But there's kind of an infinite number. We don't have time for them all. And these are the young little shoots of the natural tree. These I will place in the nethermost part of my vineyard, whithersoever I will, it mattereth not unto thee. And I do it that I may preserve unto myself the natural branches of the tree, and also that I may lay up fruit thereof against the season unto myself. for it grieveth me that I should lose this tree and the fruit thereof. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard went his way, and hid, isn't it interesting that he says hid, the natural branches of the tame olive tree in the nethermost parts of the vineyard, some in one, some in another, according to his pleasure. So I don't know if you can see this. If you're on your phone, there's probably no way, but there he goes, as there's this little dotted path as the Lord of the vineyard makes his way around, and he does it himself, and he sticks one in here and one in there, and it doesn't matter whether it's swampy ground or stony ground or hilly ground or nice. He puts them according to his will and pleasure. And it came to pass that a long time passed away, and the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, Come, let us go down into the vineyard, that we may labor in the vineyard. Okay. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard and also the servant went down into the vineyard to labor. And it came to pass that the servant said unto his master, Behold, look here, behold the tree. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard looked, and beheld the tree in which the wild olive branches had been grafted. And it had sprung forth and begun to bear fruit. And he beheld that it was good, and the fruit thereof was like unto the natural fruit. So, pay attention there. So these are wild olive tree branches, but they're producing good fruit because of the goodness that was in the tree and the roots of the tree, right? This is, when you take a historical look at this, then you'll want to compare this to the patriarchs, right? And the covenant of Israel, and between Heavenly Father and the children of Israel, right? The children of the covenant. And so he preserved the covenant. He preserved that relationship, that family, if you want to look at it that way. But again, that's just one way of looking at it. And he said unto the servant, Behold, the branches of the wild tree have taken hold of the moisture of the root thereof, that the root thereof hath brought forth much strength. And because of the much strength of the root thereof, the wild branches have brought forth tame fruit. Now, if we had not grafted in these branches, the tree thereof would have perished. And now behold, I shall lay up much fruit, which the tree thereof hath brought forth. And the fruit thereof I shall lay up against the season unto mine own self. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto the servant, Come, let us go to the nethermost part of the vineyard. And behold, if the natural branches of the tree have not brought forth much fruit also, that I may lay up the fruit thereof against the season unto mine own self. Now here's another question. What is the fruit? What does that represent to us? And again, no wrong answer. Well, maybe there's wrong answers, but there are multiple answers, lots of answers, and no one's going to tell you, what is or isn't. It's up to you. The fruit that, because remember he's saying the fruit is more important than the tree. Although the tree is very important and he doesn't want to lose it. The fruit could be our when they talk about the fruits of our labors, by your fruits ye shall know them. So it could be our good works. It could be our growth, our spiritual growth. It could be the covenants that we make. Maybe every little piece of fruit is when a person receives temple covenants or something like that and makes those final everlasting covenants. And so each one of us who does that, we become a fruit. And so we're a good fruit if we've successfully made those covenants. Who knows? Like I say, think it through and decide for yourself, depending on how you want to look at it in this moment. And remember, keep changing it up and try it again another way. Okay. And it came to pass that they went forth whither the master had hid the natural branches of the tree. And he said unto the servant, Behold these. And he beheld the first that it had brought forth much fruit. And he beheld also that it was good. And he said unto the servant, Take of the fruit thereof, and lay it up against the season, that I may preserve it unto mine own self. For behold, said he, this long time have I nourished it, and it hath brought forth much fruit. So we're looking now at this tree here. Now, so you notice, now that's super tiny, so I'll tell you if you can't see it. It's a wild tree, but all of the fruit on it is good fruit. So, hey, how cool is that? Now, don't pay attention to my picture. I have no idea what it really looked like, but just, hey, so because of the grafting, now the wild tree, the whole tree is bringing forth much good fruit. That's great. And it came to pass that the servant said unto his master, How comest thou hither to plant this tree, or this branch of this tree? For behold, it was the poorest spot in all the land of thy vineyard. And the Lord of the vineyard said unto him, Counsel me not. I knew that it was a poor spot of ground, wherefore I said unto thee, I have nourished it this long time, and thou beholdest that it hath brought forth much fruit. I love that. There he is. He's getting questioned by his servant, and he's saying, hey, yeah, you don't ask the questions here. I know what I'm doing. This isn't my first rodeo. It's also interesting. So when you think of, if you use this model and you think, okay, so the location in the vineyard, maybe that pertains to my life circumstances. And so maybe what's happening here, or the way that I can compare this is, maybe so in this particular spot of the vineyard, it wasn't a very good place. So maybe I can look at my challenges in my life and I can say, well, gosh, even if I was born with challenges, or maybe I'm in a family that's got some flaws, maybe a lot of them, maybe I've got some really severe weaknesses or disabilities or whatever it may be, challenges that make the circumstances of my life a poor spot in the vineyard. But the Lord is saying, hey, I can take a poor spot and I can work with it and I can make it better and I can make it so that it brings forth good fruit. So there you go. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'm just reading what I wrote there. And I guess I did it kind of twice. So yeah. So there was that tree. You can see it bigger now. And purple tree, but it's all green stuff, even though it was kind of the swampy area, right? So there we go. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard, there's so many slides on here. If I only screwed up that one, then that's a miracle. Sorry about that. It came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, Look hither. Behold, I have planted another branch of the tree also. Excuse me. That's not a yawn. Okay, so now he's in that second one in the lower left corner. And thou knowest that this spot of ground was poorer than the first. So you thought that first one was bad. This one's even worse. But behold the tree, I have nourished it this long time, and it hath brought forth much fruit. Therefore gather it, and lay it up against the season, that I may preserve it unto mine own self. So isn't that an interesting thing? That even during times when it would appear that there are no laborers, no servants in the vineyard, right? Maybe times when there are no prophets on the earth or whatever. And, clearly here's the Lord saying that this long time has he nourished it, right? So Heavenly Father has been active in his vineyard, this earth, whether we are aware of it or not, right? Whether there's a formal church here or not, he's still moving the pieces around and nourishing what needs to be nourished and doing all that stuff. So it's kind of cool. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said again unto his servant, Look hither, and behold another branch also which I have planted. Behold that I have nourished it also, and it hath brought forth fruit. So this is the one in the hilly, this is the lower right-hand corner. Same deal. The whole tree is bringing forth good fruit. And he said unto the servant, Look hither, and behold the last. So this is the upper right corner where it's good ground. Nice, fertile, flat, whatever. Behold, this have I planted in a good spot of ground, and I have nourished it this long time, and only a part of the tree hath brought forth tame fruit, and the other part of the tree hath brought forth wild fruit. Behold, I have nourished this tree like unto the others. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto the servant, Pluck off the branches that have not brought forth good fruit, and cast them into the fire. But behold, the servant said unto him, Let us prune it, and dig about it, and nourish it a little longer, that perhaps it may bring forth good fruit unto thee, that thou canst lay it up against the season. So this is an interesting thing. Do you think that the servant knows more than the master? I don't think that at all. I think perhaps it could be any number of things. Maybe the master is sort of tossing, he's putting out a suggestion, that has room for improvement on purpose, waiting to see if the servant, what's the servant going to do with that information? A little teaching opportunity maybe. And perhaps maybe it's just kind of one of those areas. Sometimes the Lord says, it doesn't matter to me. You do what you want, right? We've seen that in the early days of the church with mission calls and things. They would ask, well, should we go north or should we go south? And he would say, it doesn't matter to me. You do what you want. There's plenty of opportunity regardless of which way you go. So this is interesting though, right? Lots of analogies you could draw here. Interesting that the tree that had the fewest challenges of all is the one that brought forth good fruit and sketchy fruit, right? And, is that us? So during times when we're just coasting, all is well in Zion, Zion prospereth. Maybe that's when we start to get lazy and our fruit becomes a little less, awesome. Okay. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard and the servant of the Lord of the vineyard did nourish all of the fruit of the vineyard. So they nourished all of it. And it came to pass that a long time had passed away, and the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, Come, let us go down into the vineyard, that we may labor again in the vineyard. For behold, the time draweth near, and the end soon cometh. Wherefore I must lay up fruit against the season unto mine own self. So when you're looking at the historical analogy here, then this would be the long time that it passed away would be the many centuries of apostasy. And this would be coming into the restoration of the gospel 200 years ago. And it came to pass that the Lord, but again, that's just the one way of looking at it, right? We can look at this as our own lives. And so if you look at these trees, you can see that they've all kind of overgrown a bit and they're different than they were. It came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard and the servant went down into the vineyard, and they came to the tree whose natural branches had been broken off, and the wild branches had been grafted in. And behold, all sorts of fruit did cumber the tree. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard did taste of the fruit, every sort, according to its number. And the Lord of the vineyard said, Behold, this long time have we nourished this tree, and I have laid it up unto myself against the season. I have laid up unto myself against the season much fruit. So he's saying this has been a very productive tree over the years. But behold, this time it hath brought forth much fruit, and there is none of it which is good. And behold, there are all kinds of bad fruit, and it profiteth me nothing, notwithstanding all our labor. And now it grieveth me that I should lose this tree. So if you think about, the conditions 200 years ago, the Lord, when he was talking to Joseph, said, the religions that are here, none of them are doing quite the right things. They don't have the authority, and they're not, their hearts are not in the right place. And, so here, much fruit. So there was a lot of activity, lots and lots of activity back then, but not quite of the right sort, nothing that he could keep. And, so then again, looking at ourselves, sometimes we go through periods where maybe we are very religiously busy, right? We can be very busy with church matters or whatever. And so, on one hand, you might look at it and say, wow, look at all that fruit. You're busy, busy, busy. But now stop and look close. Actually taste the fruit. How is the fruit? If the fruit isn't pure, if the intentions aren't pure, that sort of thing, then that fruit's not going to do you any good. Even though there's a lot of it, it's not the right fruit. It's not good. And the Lord of the vineyard said unto the servant, What shall we do unto the tree, that I may preserve again good fruit unto mine own self? And the servant said unto his master, Behold, because thou didst graft in the branches of the wild olive tree, they have nourished the roots, that they are alive, and they have not perished. Wherefore thou beholdest that they are yet good. So, if you chopped off all the branches and just walked away, then the whole thing, the roots and everything will die. But they kept the roots alive, so that's good. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, The tree profiteth me nothing, and the roots thereof profit me nothing, so long as it shall bring forth evil fruit, which is true. Nevertheless, I know that the roots are good, and for mine own purpose I have preserved them. And because of their much strength, they have hitherto brought forth from the wild branches good fruit. But behold, the wild branches have grown and have overrun the roots thereof. And because that the wild branches have overcome the roots thereof, it hath brought forth much evil fruit. And because it hath brought forth so much evil fruit, thou beholdest that it beginneth to perish, and it will soon become ripened that it may be cast into the fire, except that we should do something for it to preserve it. So there needs to be a balance, right? It's grown too big. The roots can't sustain that amount of growth, right? And we can be that way as well. If our core, if we're not healthy in our core, right, with our relationships with Heavenly Father, our relationships with our family, these sorts of things. These are, for us as individuals, these are kind of our roots, right? And if those roots aren't healthy, then all the busyness in the world is not going to bring forth good fruit, right? It will all be, it might be fruit, but it's going to be tainted. Let's see here. Where I left. Oh, yep. Okay, done. So next page. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, Let us go down into the nethermost parts of the vineyard, and behold, if the natural branches have also brought forth evil fruit. And it came to pass that they went down into the nethermost parts of the vineyard, and it came to pass that they beheld that the fruit of the natural branches had become corrupt also. Yea, the first and the second, and also the last, and they had all become corrupt. And the wild fruit of the last had overcome that part of the tree which had brought forth the good fruit, even that the branch had withered away and died. So that's on that one in the upper right corner. It's just not, everything doesn't respond the same, and it doesn't always work. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard wept, and he said unto the servant, What could I have done more for my vineyard? Behold, I knew that all the fruit of the vineyard, save it were these, had become corrupted. And now these which have once brought forth good fruit have also become corrupted. And now all the trees of my vineyard are good for nothing, save it be to be hewn down and cast into the fire. And behold, this last, whose branches, upper right corner, whose branch hath withered away, I did plant in a good spot of ground, yea, even that which was choice unto me above all other parts of the land of my vineyard. And thou beholdest that I also cut down that which cumbered this spot of ground, that I might plant this tree in the stead thereof. Okay, let's talk about that one for a minute. Historical context. So when we're looking at this as a historical thing, this is the branch that represents the family of Lehi, right? And the good spot of ground that he's referring to is the Americas, where they came, the promised land. And very interesting that he says in verse 44, Thou beholdest that I also cut down that which cumbered this spot of ground, that I might plant this tree in the stead thereof. The Jaredite people covered that land, and the Lord removed them, right? They had become wicked, and so they killed each other. I mean, the Lord didn't have to do much. They killed each other down to the very last man. There was Coriantumr at the very end. And so the Lord removed that which cumbered that spot of ground so that he could plant the family of Lehi. And we knew, that was the tree that had part good fruit, part evil fruit. And that's now who was being good and who was being evil depended on what day it was. Sometimes the Lamanites were evil and sometimes the Nephites were evil. But having kind of a 50-50 mix there, or, just a mixture of good and bad out of the one tree, that exactly matches that. And, we can line that up with us as individuals. Certain parts of our life, we're not always true to ourselves, right? We might vary with all proper intentions and a good heart, to conduct ourselves one way in certain parts of our lives, but we may struggle in other parts of our lives. Maybe it's addictions or other things where we really, truly, sincerely are trying to be good, and we are being good. Like our lives, there's a lot of good in our lives, but maybe there's this part that we don't talk about, and we struggle with that, and that's not good. So you see, it's like this totally, this model works on any level, and I think it becomes most useful when we apply it to ourselves. If all we do is try and match it up with history and then feel like, hey, I got it, I know what history applies to what verse, we've totally missed the boat. It is only useful when we apply it to us. The historical comparison is just interesting, but not much more. And thou beheldest that a part thereof brought forth good fruit, and a part thereof brought forth wild fruit. And because I plucked not the branches thereof, and cast them into the fire, behold, they have overcome the good branch, that it hath withered away. And now behold, notwithstanding all the care which we have taken of my vineyard, the trees thereof have become corrupted, that they bring forth no good fruit. And these I had hoped to preserve, to have laid up fruit thereof against the season unto mine own self. But behold, they have become like unto the wild olive tree, and they are of no worth but to be hewn down and cast into the fire, and it grieveth me that I should lose them. So here again, it's interesting to hear the Lord, which we equate to Heavenly Father. We could also think of it as the Savior and the servant being the prophet. That works too. But to hear the passion and the empathy and the sadness and all that, the grief, is that made up? Is that, do we think that that's real or not? A real aspect, a personality trait of Heavenly Father? Absolutely, I think so. That he does grieve. He grieves he grieves when we grieve. I think absolutely, that is his nature, as any parent would. But what could I have done more in my vineyard? Have I slackened mine hand? Have I not nourished it? Nay, I have nourished it, and I have digged about it, and I have pruned it, and I have dunged it, and I have stretched forth mine hand almost all the day long. And the end draweth nigh, and it grieveth me that I should hew down all the trees of my vineyard, and cast them into the fire, that they should be burned. Who is it that has corrupted my vineyard? And it came to pass that the servant said unto his master, Is it not the loftiness of thy vineyard? Have not the branches thereof overcome the roots which are good? And because the branches have overcome the roots thereof, behold, they grew faster than the strength of the roots, taking strength unto themselves. Behold, I say, is not this the cause that the trees of thy vineyard have become corrupted? Isn't that interesting? That the way that they're looking at this is, sometimes it's not about, someone was a bad influence and they turned this good kid into a bad kid, or, they look for a culprit, and maybe there is no culprit. Maybe it's just it's the way that the surroundings in general, and the combination of the surroundings and then the personality of this individual came together. And in this case, it produced, wild fruit, if you want to look at it that way. And I think that there's an important lesson there. When we see something going badly, it doesn't do much good to, just say, oh, you're a wicked tree, or, branch or whatever. You should just be cast into the fire, right? And we're going to talk more about not giving up on people in a minute. But also, I don't think it's productive to say, to start looking around the neighborhood and saying, who corrupted you? Who did this to you? That there might be something there, but it's never that simple. There's, it's just the whole combination of things. And so you got to look at the whole picture and all the combinations if you're going to try and help somebody, right? And in the end, it's up to them. And it came to pass that the servant said unto his master, and we already read that part. Let's not read it again. Okay. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said, so this is the Lord getting really grumpy. Let us go to and hew down the trees of that vineyard and cast them into the fire, that they shall not cumber the ground of my vineyard, for I have done all. What could I have done more for my vineyard? And, it's good. It's good that sometimes we have someone to talk to. But behold, the servant said unto the Lord of the vineyard, spare it a little longer. And maybe part of this tells us that, there are other examples of this in the scripture, that sometimes it's our persistence with the Lord in asking for a thing that wins the day. I think we need to follow the Lord, and we need to be willing to do what he asks for. But if it's a righteous thing that we're asking for. It doesn't always work because in the end, it's his decision. But in some cases, maybe if there's a thing and he's just waiting to see how badly we want it. And so, by asking again, then, sometimes maybe that helps. Hard to tell. I'm glad I'm not in his position, at least yet. And the Lord said, Yea, I will spare it a little longer, for it grieveth me that I should lose the trees of my vineyard. Wherefore, let us take of the branches of these, which I have planted in the nethermost parts of my vineyard. Let us graft them into the tree from whence they came. Let us pluck from the tree those branches whose fruit is most bitter, and graft in the natural branches of the tree in the stead thereof. So basically, he's putting everything back where it came from. Wild branches go back to the wild trees. The natural branches come back to the main tree. Everybody's back where they started, and the nastiest of the stuff, the nastiest of the stuff will go into the fire. Sorry, I did not mean to do that. And this will I do, that the tree may not perish, that perhaps I may preserve unto myself the roots thereof for mine own purpose. And behold, the roots of the natural branches of the tree, which I planted whithersoever I would, are yet alive. Wherefore, that I may preserve them also for mine own purpose, I will take of the branches of this tree, and I will graft them in unto them. Yea, I will graft in unto them the branches of their mother tree, that I may preserve the roots also unto mine own self, that when they shall be sufficiently strong, perhaps they may bring forth good fruit unto me, and I may yet have glory in the fruit of my vineyard. Right? So, and now again, if that sounds like, wait, didn't he just say that? Kind of the same thing. Yeah, he did. So it gets, like I said, it gets a little bit repetitive, and don't, you're not losing your mind. You're fine. One of the things that I think about when we're thinking of the tree, and the branches and all that being related to, a family, right? And, maybe you've got, instead of wild branches, you've got wild children who are not living the way that you would like them to. But absolutely, when you talk about then the roots and preserving the roots, you might compare that to your family relationship. Like, okay, I've got a child and he or she has chosen to live, away from the church or away from the standards of your family or whatever it may be. But you might say to yourself, I want to preserve the roots. I want to preserve my relationship with this child. So even though they're not living the way and making decisions that I wish that they would, I'm still going to love this child because that is more important, right? My relationship with this child, the fact that they know that I love them no matter what, that is more important than whether or not they are living their lives perfectly the way that I want them to, because maybe later something can happen and they will, return to a better way of living. But in order for that to be a possibility, I have to preserve the roots or the core relationship. And sign me up for that one. I think that's absolutely a way of working that is very right and true. And it came to pass that they took from the natural tree which had become wild, and they grafted in unto the natural trees, which also had become wild. And they also took of the natural trees which had become wild, and grafted into their mother tree. And so, in other words, blah, 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 they put everything back. And the Lord of the vineyard said unto the servant, Pluck not the wild branches from the trees, save it be those which are most bitter. And in them ye shall graft according to that which I have said. And we will nourish again the trees of the vineyard, and we will trim up the branches thereof, and we will pluck from the trees those branches which are ripened that must perish, and cast them into the fire. So he's not burning any more than he needs to, but he's also he's balancing the trees again so that the tops aren't overgrown, so that there's the right amount, that the roots can sustain it. It's interesting when you study up on how olive trees are actually maintained. They call them heritage trees. And what happens is they get overgrown, just like in the picture that I had earlier with lots of branches. And what they'll do is they'll cut out enough branches so that they need to make sure that the light can penetrate through so that all of the branches get light. Because if there's any portion that's shaded because of other portions of the same tree, it won't bear fruit, right? It might grow more wood, but it won't grow more fruit. And the fruit is the important part. We will nourish again the trees of the vineyard, and we will trim up the branches, and I already read that. Sorry, we're doing that a lot today. because 77 verses isn't enough. You got to read a few of them twice. And this I do, that perhaps the roots thereof may take strength because of their goodness, and because of the change of the branches, that the good may overcome the evil. See, isn't that interesting? Sometimes just the change itself, the fact that they're changing the branches, is enough to kind of kick it back into producing good, right? Because it kind of forces them to reevaluate and go, holy cow, everything just changed. What am I going to do? And good things happen, or they can happen. And because that I have preserved the natural branches and the roots thereof, and that I have grafted in the natural branches again into their mother tree, and have preserved the roots of their mother tree, that perhaps the trees of my vineyard may bring forth again good fruit, and that I may have joy again in the fruit of my vineyard, and perhaps that I may rejoice exceedingly that I have preserved the roots and the branches of the first fruit. Wherefore, go to and call servants. See, so this is that last time. And now, servants, that's you and me, right? We're in this one. Call servants, that we may labor, right? He's right there with us, may labor diligently with our might in the vineyard, that we may prepare the way, that I may bring forth again the natural fruit, which natural fruit is good and the most precious above all other fruit. If you want the Lord in your life, if you want to feel like he is your partner in the daily little things, then get involved with the gathering, however you want to do it, right? You don't wait around to be called. Just jump in and do something good. That's all. Just do something good. Wherefore, let us go to and labor with our might this last time. For behold, the end draweth nigh, and this is for the last time that I shall prune my vineyard. Graft in the branches. So see, we're repeating the instruction. Graft in the branches, begin at the last, that they may be first, and that the first may be last. Interesting. This comes up in the scriptures a lot. Last, first, last. I'm not even going to touch that one other than to say, think that one through. There are so many interesting ways that you can look at all of these things. Dig about the trees, both old and young, the first and the last and the first, that all may be nourished once again for the last time. Wherefore, dig about them and prune them and dung them once more for the last time, for the end draweth nigh. And if it be so that these last grafts shall grow and bring forth a natural fruit, then shall ye prepare the way for them that they may grow. Can I give you another example of the last, first, last thing? Yeah, you ready? So where did all of this stuff grow geographically? It all started in, the kind of the Middle East there, right? In Jerusalem and all the lands round about, right? That's where it started. That's where Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all those guys and the 10 tribes and all that, it all started right there in the Middle East. And in this last dispensation, where did it start? Nearly as far away from there as you could get. And where has it grown? Kind of everywhere but there, right? So, and it continues to grow. And if it's easy to spot that when you look at temples and the growth of temples, right? First temple, Kirtland, Ohio. The first dozen temples were in the United States, or mostly in the United States. And then they've started to grow and sprout in other places as well, but not back there in the Middle East yet. Not yet. So what was first is just waiting to be last. And so, just not even a couple days ago in General Conference, how cool was that? That they announced a temple in Dubai. Now that's not Jerusalem. We're not at the very first yet, which is going to be very last, but we're getting closer, aren't we? And one in China, right? So we're creeping in there closer, and that is very exciting news. So when you think of first, last, first, that is certainly one area where you can apply that and say, yeah, okay, we're getting closer. And as they begin to grow, ye shall clear away the branches which bring forth bitter fruit, according to the strength of the good and the size thereof. And ye shall not clear away the bad thereof all at once, lest the roots thereof should be too strong for the graft, and the graft thereof shall perish, and I lose the trees of my vineyard. For it grieveth me that I should lose the trees of my vineyard. Wherefore ye shall clear away the bad, according as the good shall grow, that the root and the top may be equal in strength, until the good shall overcome the bad, and the bad be hewn down and cast into the fire, that they cumber not the ground of my vineyard. And thus will I sweep away the bad out of my vineyard. So if you think about things just for the last 200 years, they've grown slowly, right? It hasn't been this massive, and everybody's suddenly, all aligned and doing the right thing. No, not even close. It's been a very slow, it's been miraculous, the growth of and spreading of the gospel and the truth and the light. And yet, when you look at it on a global scale, it's been very, it's still small. And the branches of the natural tree will I graft in again into the natural tree. This is like the fourth time he said it, but he's going to make sure we get the message. And the branches of the natural tree will I graft into the natural branches of the tree, and thus will I bring them together again, that they shall bring forth the natural fruit, and they shall be one. And the bad shall be cast away, yea, even out of all of the land of my vineyard. For behold, only once will I prune my vineyard. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard sent his servant, and the servant went and did as the Lord had commanded him, and brought other servants, and they were few. Now remember, in a way, it seems like there's so many missionaries, so many people serving in different capacities, whether they're missionaries or not, right? We're all servants, or we can be. And so it seems in one way like there's so many of us. But then when you look at it on a global scale, we are few, so few. And the Lord of the vineyard said unto them, Go to and labor in the vineyard with your might. For behold, this is the last time that I shall nourish my vineyard. For the end is nigh at hand, and the season speedily cometh. And if ye labor with your might with me, ye shall have joy in the fruit which I shall lay up unto myself again against the time which will soon come. I love that. With him, right? And it came to pass that the servants did go and labor with their mights, and the Lord of the vineyard labored also with them. Isn't that awesome? And they did obey the commandments of the Lord of the vineyard in all things. There you go, right? And there began to be the natural fruit again in the vineyard, and the natural branches began to grow and thrive exceedingly. And the wild branches began to be plucked off and to be cast away. And they did keep the root and the top thereof equal, according to the strength thereof. And thus they labored with all diligence, according to the commandments of the Lord of the vineyard, even until the bad had been cast away out of the vineyard. And the Lord had preserved unto himself that the trees had become again the natural fruit. And they became like unto one body, and the fruits were equal. And the Lord of the vineyard had preserved unto himself the natural fruit, which was most precious unto him from the beginning. So a couple other applications of this. Sometimes, if you look at the tree as being maybe the membership of the church, and we will see people join the church, or maybe they were born into the church, that can be too. And sometimes they fall away and go away, right? And that's not a shock, right? It's part of what is expected. It's not for everybody. It just isn't, right? And so even people who were born into it, they may decide this isn't for me. And so we will see, and so it in the same way that everybody wasn't suddenly just like, this is the truth, and here's an angel to tell you, and now you all believe. Everybody wasn't converted at once, and not everybody who has been involved stays involved. But it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen in massive quantities all at once. It's kind of a slow and gradual process. We can also think of ourselves. Sometimes, there are things in our lives, and as the good things are starting to, we don't suddenly go from, completely evil to completely good, as we are converted in our lives. It's a process, as we start to see learn the truth and see the light, we start to make gradual changes in our lives, giving away or casting away certain bad habits and incorporating some good ones. And yet we continue to grow throughout our lives, casting away, and maybe they're not even evil habits, but maybe they're just less good ones, right? And replacing them with better ones. Good, better, best. Okay. And it came to pass that when the Lord of the vineyard saw that his fruit was good, and that his vineyard was no more corrupt, he called his servants and said unto them, Behold, for this last time we have nourished my vineyard, and thou beholdest that I have done according to my will, and I have preserved the natural fruit, that it is good, even like as it was in the beginning. And blessed art thou, for because ye have been diligent in laboring with me in my vineyard, I have kept my commandments. And have kept my commandments, and have brought unto me again the natural fruit, that my vineyard is no more corrupted, and the bad is cast away. Behold, ye shall have joy with me because of the fruit of my vineyard. Very cool. For behold, for a long time will I lay up the fruit of my vineyard unto mine own self against the season, which speedily cometh. And for the last time I have nourished my vineyard, and pruned it, and dug about it, and dunged it. Wherefore I will lay up unto mine own self of the fruit for a long time, according to that which I have spoken. And when the time cometh that the evil fruit shall again come into my vineyard, then will I cause the good and the bad to be gathered, and the good will I preserve unto myself, and the bad I will cast away into its own place. And then cometh the season and the end, and my vineyard will I cause to be burned with fire. Dun, dun, dun. And that's it. So this last little bit here, you could, when you're doing the history comparison, then that's talking about the millennium, where all that is left is the good, and for a very long time it is just the good, but not forever. Then at the very end there will be again some bad creep in, and then but not for long, and then it will become separated and judged, and off you go. So 77 verses, some of them twice. Let's come back to where we were talking about, right? And hopefully you've seen, as we've read through this, use it as a model, not just a story. Try out different parts and different combinations and different applications, right? Try it out as, the whole world and the history of the world. Try it out as me in my life, as the last year or a month or something. Look at the things that happen to you and say, wow, this feels like I'm being pruned. Why do I feel like I have poop on me? Am I being dunged? And oh, it's nourishing. Oh, is that what you call it? And, these uncomfortable things, if you look at it correctly, then you realize truly, sincerely, these are blessings. Okay, blessings. Okay, I get it. And let's remember always, how are we going to use our agency, right? The Lord is going to do what the Lord needs to do, and he does what he does to try as best he can to encourage us to grow and bring forth good fruit. In the end of the day, though, it's up to us as to whether or not we choose to bring forth good fruit. Agency, it's a thing. So, how will we respond to where the Lord has planted us and how he has cared for us? Will we wither? What sort of fruit will we grow? That is the question. And like I say, it's a fun chapter, a fun long chapter, but there's so much good in there. And I think it's so applicable to our day, any day, the good days and the bad days. So I hope you've enjoyed that. And coming up in the next one, Jacob is going to now talk about the things of this that are most meaningful to him. He's going to talk about the Lord's compassion and the Lord, his investment of time and energy into blessing us with the pruning and the digging and the dunging that we need in order to be successful and all that. So stay tuned for that one. It'll be a much shorter chapter, I promise. All right. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys soon.